Hey GED students, it's GED question of the daytime, and I know I told you last time that this was going to be our last perpendicular line question of the day, but I was wrong. I forgot I had done one more, but I swear this one's the last one, so let's check it out. It says, find the equation of the line that has an x-intercept of 3, 0 and is perpendicular to the line y equals x. Okay, so first of all, I'll just point out what we're finding. We're finding the equation of a line. Most common way to write the equation of a line is in what we call the slope-intercept form of a line. Now, the nice thing is this equation is not something you have to have memorized. It is on your GED formula sheet, but you have to know what to do with it. So it says y equals mx plus b. Notice this is an equation. This is what they're asking me to find. Currently, with all these letters in it, it's the equation of a generic line. In order to turn it into a specific line, what I need to do is plug in a number for m and a number for b. That means basically that I need two things. I need to do before I can write my final answer here. I'm going to need to find m. Remember that m stands for slope of the line. And I'm going to need to find b. And remember that we use the letter B in this equation to stand for the y-intercept, the place where my line crosses the y-axis on the graph. Once I find M and find B, then I'll be able to plug into that equation, into that slope-intercept equation, y equals mx plus b. Okay, I've given myself a little plan. Let's go ahead and see what information I know. So, I see that I've been given a couple of pieces of information. One of the things that I've been given is that my line has an x-intercept of 3, 0. Now be really careful. X-intercepts and y-intercepts are different. So all I really know about this is that it's a point that I have an x value and a y value. Okay. And then the other thing I see is that my line is perpendicular to this line. Now there's something really important you need to understand about perpendicular lines on a graph. On a graph, the slope of perpendicular lines are related. They're not the same, but they are related. The slope of perpendicular lines are what we call opposite, meaning they have different signs. Reciprocals, meaning they're flips of the same fraction. Like what was rise over run. It's kind of like the run and the rise flip. The two numbers flip so that the numerator of one fraction is the denominator of the other. So this particular line y equals x, let's see, what is its slope? This line y equals x has a slope, an m. You might be saying, Kate, it doesn't have a slope. There's no number in front of x. A lot of us know that the slope is the m, the number multiplying with x, and students tell me all the time, there's no number, Kate. The slope must be 0. And I'm like, oh, guys, you're making a false assumption. There's not 0 x's sitting right there. There might not appear to be a number in front of x, but there sure isn't 0 x's, or x would have gone away. So remember that the invisible coefficient, the multiplier, if you don't see a multiplier, is actually the number 1. Why? Because 1 times x is the same as x. Okay, and so how many x's are there? Just one single solitary x. And so my slope of that particular line was 1. But remember, my line is perpendicular to that line. My line is perpendicular, meaning that I'll need the opposite reciprocal. I'll need to change the sign on the slope. So I'm going to write that that was the perpendicular slope. Now for my slope, I'm going to need to change the sign, like I said, and I'm going to need to flip the fraction. Now you might be saying to me, Kate, 1 is not a fraction. How can I flip it? Well, any number can be made to look like a fraction by throwing it over 1. So I have the number 1 over 1. But an interesting thing happens when you flip 1 over 1. Since they're the same number, if you bring a 1 to the top and a 1 to the bottom, you're still going to have 1 over 1. And so my slope here just simplifies as -1. The slope of my line is -1. Now let's move on to the second step. We've got to find the y-intercept. So there's more than one way to do this, but my preferred method, so that I only have to deal with one equation, is to bust out that formula, y equals mx plus b. I don't know the y-intercept, the b, but I do know a y value. I had one in my point. An m, I just found that. And an x value, I had that in my point. If I can plug in the other three numbers, I can use this formula to solve for b. Let's do it. I'll plug in my 0 for y. Again, I'm getting that right here from my point. I'll plug in the m I just found, which was -1. I'll plug in the x value from my point, which was 3. And I don't know my b. That's okay. I'm about to discover it. So now we simplify before we solve. -1 times 3 is -3. And now I can solve this guy for b by adding 3 to both sides. And I do find out that my b is equal to 3. So now that I know my m, -1, and I know my b, 3, I can plug into y equals mx plus b for my final answer. Remember, when you're plugging in for your final answer, it's supposed to be the equation of a line, so you're going to leave y. You're going to plug in for m, it was -1. You'll leave x. And you're going to plug in for b, it was 3. Now, if there's any simplifying you can do, you should simplify. And I do see some simplifying I can do here. No mathematician worth their salt leaves a coefficient of 1. We don't leave around multipliers of 1 because we know what happens when we multiply by 1, namely jack. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. And so what I end up with here is just -x plus 3. And that is my final answer. It's in the form they asked me for, an equation of a line. Don't think just because it's your answer, it has to be a single solitary number. If they asked you for an equation, they really do want an equation. Okay, great. If you have any questions about this or any other GED topic, be sure to drop it in the comments and I'll do my best to answer it.